Good afternoon to all our listeners and welcome to the Red Stripe Premier League Roundup and a preview show. I am Simon Preston and I'm joined alongside Dwayne Richards from yardysports.com. Dwayne, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. It was a terrible weekend for the teams at the bottom of the Premier League. All of them, the bottom three teams lost, and they'll be worried about their state in the Red Stripe Premier League now.
Absolutely. A lot of intriguing results over the weekend. But before we get into the depth of discussion, let's thank our sponsors, Premier League Club Associations, the PLCA, Red Stripe, grab a red stripe, start the game, and yardysports.com. Yardysports.com is Jamaica's #1 sports website featuring Jamaican and international sports stories. Yardy Sports, we are #1. So just to wrap up the results that we had over the weekend on Sunday, Reno got in by Tivoli Gardens 1-0, Waterhouse getting by Boyz 1-0, Humble Lion defeating Jamalco 2-1, Arnett Gardens beating Marvelly Hewenden 3-0, and Harbour View getting by Huey with a 2-2 draw there. That was a draw. So Dwayne, I wanted us to start first with that game with Reno and Tivoli. James getting on the score sheet, his first goal this season in just his 6th appearance for the club. Reno unbeaten and will stay up this season. We'll have fights again next season in the Premier League.
Yeah, there was no real doubt about Reno staying in the Red Stripe Premier League. They were and still are in with an outside chance of getting into the top 6, but they dropped points two matches ago, and that pretty much, I think, cost them. They'll have to hope that Arnett loses, but from where they are pretty much safe. They've always been safe, and it was a good win for them. I sort of expected Tivoli to win that game, but they came up with the goods, and they'll be happy with that.
Right, Reno, of course, unbeaten in their last 3 games, 7 points from the last 3. That has helped them to get away from the danger at the bottom with the likes of Jamalco and Marvelly also threatening there. An interesting thing from Tivoli that was quite concerning for me is that they have not been having good form away from home. Their last away win, we have to go back to January where they beat Mobe. They've only picked up 1 point from their last 4 games away. Dwayne, do you see anything away from home that they look like a shadow of themselves when they play actually at home? It's been concerning of late.
Yeah, they've come off the boil. They looked really, really good, but since Jermaine Johnson has stopped scoring, the goals have dried up for them, and it has to be cause for concern, because we're now getting down to the nitty-gritty, and this is where you need your top players to step up and be counted. And the over-reliance on Johnson may cost them, but they will have to rethink and relook at the situation and think about how it is that they plan to negotiate and navigate the playoff round, because they've slipped out of the top 2, and now the position they're in, they're faced with a quarter-final matchup before the semi-finals.
Precisely, and if you look at the point standings right now in the table, with that loss, Tivoli, it's really dented their hopes of getting in the top 2. Would you say it's all over, or they still have something to fight to get in that top 2?
They only have 2 games left to play in the regular season, so they can only get to 58, right, which means that Humble Lion will have to lose both of their games for them to catch them, because Humble Lion are on 57. So it's a precarious position for them, and I know that they'll be disappointed with that, because at one point they looked shoo-in to be in the top 2 and avoid that and just play a semi-final game.
Absolutely. We saw how splendid their form was coming of the turn of year in 2017. But now let's turn the heads to Reno, now in 7th position. What do you think that they can achieve for the rest of the season? Because it looks unlikely for a top 6 berth, but what would you like to see them try to do for the rest of the season to establish some pride, you could say?
Yes, I think that they'd probably give a couple of the players who have been on the fringes an opportunity to play. Play at the top flight level, see what it feels like, and they'll look at themselves, assess the season, and look what their shortcomings were and build on it for the 2017-2018 season.
That's right. If you look at how Reno did last season, they tallied up 34 points. This season they have 38. So they're doing a little better. So let's see as the seasons progress how further they will go. Let's now go over to Collie Smith Drive, where Boyz went down 1-0 to Waterhouse. The goal, obviously, in that 14th minute was scored by Kemar Beckford from the penalty spot. You were at that game at Barbican. Sorry, not Collie Smith Drive, it was Barbican. What were your general thoughts of that game?
Waterhouse bossed the game up until the point where they picked up the red card when Andrew McFarlane was sent for an early shower. They played like a team that had intent. Kemar Beckford has been given the opportunity to start, and he's taken that opportunity with both hands, and he's been getting the goals for them. So it was a good performance from them. When they went down to 10 players, they played with real compactness, and they kept the Boyz Town team in front of them. The only time they looked like conceding was in stoppage time at the end of the game, but up to that point they were able to keep the entire Boyz Town team in front of them. They were organised at the back. They did very, very well from front to back, and they were value for money. They earned those 3 points, and they'll be happy with that because this has gotten them a little bit further away from the relegation scrap. So I'm certain Admiral Bailey is happy with that.
It's very interesting because, Boyz Town point of view, prior to this game, they were on a 4-game winning streak. So this game against Waterhouse, you could say they were like a shadow of themselves. Is there anything that you thought they were missing, or was Waterhouse had that cutting edge on the day, probably?
The strikers didn't show up on Sunday. They never really got into the game. They never made their presence felt. They looked like their away team. And Andrew Price was very disappointed in them at the end of the game because the 4-game win streak had pushed them away from danger. They're still not inside the relegation zone. They're outside of it. But the fact that they've lost will open up the little bit of negatives again. They'll now have to refocus again and get their minds right to ensure that they don't slip up from where they are, because they've fought really hard to get out of the position that they were in for a very long time.
Yes, you know, we saw the danger that Boyz Town in a couple of months ago, lingering at the bottom of the table. One can only wonder as well, with Shamar Nicholson continuing that sort of purple patch of form, you know, a club perhaps in the USL or MLS or Europe might come and get his services. So Boyz Town have to think next season, where are the goals going to come from? Who will they be that number 9?
Absolutely, because he's a big player. He likes to play with his back to the goal. He scores with his head and his feet. So people will be noticing that, and I'm certain at least 1 or 2 clubs will be scouting him right now.
Absolutely, you would have to say. And with the Caribbean Cup semi-finals coming up and the Gold Cup, you would have to say that he has to be part of the pool of players moving forward from the national team.
Yes, he was called in recently, and I don't imagine that they'll be dropping him. They'll be giving him a chance to, you know, show what he can do at that level, and let's hope that he can flourish there.
Absolutely. We saw him, of course, make his debut against the United States and later went on to start against Honduras the match after, so 2 caps under his belt. So let's go on to the third match that we have. We have Humble Lion that got the victory over Jamalco. Humble Lion, to me, was the dark horse team going into this season, and they have been absolutely flying at this moment, where McIntosh got a brace and Jamalco scored late in that match through Rashane Sharp. Humble Lion, are you surprised with the progress they've made this season, or quite expected where they are in the table, where they should be?
It's quite expected. They got to the semi-finals back-to-back and lost, and they want to win this league more than anything else. They have recruited senior players to bolster the squad that they have. Gary McIntosh being one of them. He was at Waterhouse previously. They want to win, and their intentions are clear. So they've gone about getting more goal scorers. Humble Lion at home is a team that almost always wins. So this was an expected win for them. They'll be happy with it. They've closed the gap on UE, and they're now primed and ready to make that real push in the knockout phase of this competition. I'm not surprised, and kudos to them. And I think that we can really look forward to good performances in the knockout round from Humble Lion.
You know, interestingly, they've conceded the least number of goals in the Red Stripe Premier League this season. They've only conceded 21. Only UE comes close to 26, and also Reno. In fact, the 3-3 thriller that they had against Portmore was the only time where they conceded more than 1 goal in 2017. So I think they've been quite resolute defensively, and that has helped them to get the results they need to put them where they are in the table in second.
And that is because of the way Donovan Ducky coaches. He ensures that the defense is solid. He doesn't give anything away. He insists that teams have to work hard to break down his team. He's a very tactical coach. He'll maneuver his team 3-4 different formations in a game. He has that type of tactical nous, and that's why I like the way his teams always set up and the way they always play. And you can expect a lot from Humble Lion going forward.
Absolutely, and you look at their also rivals in Clarendon as well, Jamalco. What a capitulation it has been from them. In their last 10 games, 2 wins, 8 losses. It's been really going downhill for Jamalco. Where would you say the problem lies? Because the goal scoring is also another issue for them. Defending, it's just all in one circle. There are so many different things to keep an eye on for them.
Absolutely. Like you said, it's everything. They were flying. They led the league, and after they got to the top of the league, they just plummeted. They haven't been able to fix it. They've had changes in terms of personnel. Ron Richards, their best player, he moved on to play with Humble Lion, and he's certainly a big miss for them, and they've not been able to steer the ship right since then. I know they find themselves in the relegation zone, threatened with falling out of the league in only their very first season in top flight football. I had spoken highly of them at the start of the season when they were playing really, really well, but their confidence has been shaken and they haven't been able to get it back despite bringing in other senior coaches to help to bolster the staff. It just hasn't happened for them, and I fear for them now. I find it hard to see them getting out of the relegation zone now, and it looks like the curtain may be closing on their season. But it's football and it's never over until it's over. They still have a couple of games left to go. Let's see if they can pull a rabbit out of the hat and squeeze themselves out of the trouble that they're in.
Well, certainly one thing that they have to be said before we go to a break, I want to make the point that it's 29 points that they have, so they're 3 points behind Boys Town. So they have to not only win their games but also depend on others. So fate is not necessarily in their own hands, you would have to say.
Absolutely, and that is where the problem lies for them.
All right, we're going to go to a break and we'll come back and we're going to wrap up the other two games and preview the one this evening. Welcome back to the Red Stripe Premier League Roundup and a preview show. I am Simon Preston and joined alongside me is Dwayne Richards from yardysports.com. Let's also give a big up to our sponsors, Premier League Clubs Association, PLCA. Red Stripe, grab a red stripe, start the game, and yardysports.com. We are number one. For the best in sports, for detailed coverage, for the best images and information of Jamaican athletes locally and globally, it's Yardy Sports. We are number one. So, Dwayne, we were just talking recently about the Jamalco game alongside Humble Lion. Let's now move ahead to that Arnett Gardens versus Marvella game. Quite immaculate to see Harris back in action. You know, last season I was quite impressed with the prospect that he was, and to get on the score sheet in his return, I'm very excited to see the sort of prospect because he's a young player as well. What is in store for him?
Yes, he played really, really well. He was the leader of the team in midfield for Arnett Gardens last season before he got hurt, right about the time that he got his international call-up. So I felt really bad for him when that happened, but he returned last night. He looked the same player. He was an inspiration in midfield for Arnett Gardens. The goal that he took was an absolutely sublime goal. He created it. He finished it off. And then he got a penalty. He could have crowned himself in glory from very early, but his penalty was saved. But nonetheless, his team went on to win the game 3-0, and he was a massive influence. He played for 3/4 of the game. You know, his coach, Jerome, said he kept him in the game for as long as he could to get his match fitness back. So he delivered for his team, and they'll be happy with that because they'll be playing player football expectedly, and it'll be good for them to have him at this point in time because he's almost like a new signing at the right time in the season.
Yes, it's a key that you said that at the right time of the season because crucial places are up for grabs where Arnett Gardens are yet to secure a spot in the top 6. They still have some more work to do, although when you look at the points gap between Arnett and Reno, they have a 7-point cushion, but Reno has games in hand. So anything is possible throughout the end of the season. Arnett still has some work to do. They're not over the line as yet.
They're not over the line, but for them, unlike Jamalco, they have their fate in their own hands. Win and go through. It's that simple.
Yes, of course. This is Arnett's first win since March 5th, where they beat Harbour View with 3-2. So this was a victory that they desperately needed. Now, when you look at Marvella Hewenden side of things, there's really little to be positive about. One win in their last 14 games. They've had a lot of draws in between that period of time, but the goals, it's been really dried up. Only 22 this season, where we've had Nicholas Scott the most with 5. It's been a challenge going forward for this Hewenden team.
Yes, they have. They've had 2 coaching changes since the start of the season. Number of personnel have come in and out, gone in and out, and the uncertainty around the club has cost them dearly. And like you said, they're not scoring goals. They've been unbeaten. Pardon me. They've been unbeaten, but in being unbeaten, they're still not getting the points that they need, and this has cost them dearly. They've slipped from mid-table now to the bottom of the league, and like Jamalco, their fate is not in their own hands.
It really is a tough situation for both Jamalco and Marvella because we saw them started off so well but started to sort of deteriorate in form as the season progressed. You look at Marvella now, after 30 games, 28 points. They're at the foot of the table. Marvelly still has some, you could say, young prospects moving forward. I saw different players involved, like, for example, you have Nicholas Nelson, a former Jamaica under-17 representative. Say Marvel Hewenden are relegated. Do you think that they should sell their best players to allocate or keep them in the Super League so that they can get back up and jump back again next season?
It'll be hard for them to keep them because the players that they have now want to play Premiership football.
Yeah.
The ones who brought them up will probably stay. But the ones who joined, it's hard to see them staying because they will want to continue to play top flight football. So it will be a big challenge, a massive challenge for them to come up if they get relegated.
It is a tough one that we have. Well, let's move ahead now to the evening game that we had on Sunday. Harbour View taking on UWI, where UE has been in a splendid sort of form. They've only lost one game in their last 13. They've been ticking over in the points table, making sure that they're able to get at least one. Away from home, they're picking up the draws, and at home, they're getting the wins. So, Dwayne, when you look at this one, Harbour View and UE 2-2, a fair result at the end of the day?
Yes, a fair result because Harbour View has found a resurgence in the latter part of the season. They've moved away from trouble that they were in. They look a solid unit now, and Ludlow Bernard will be happy with what he's been getting from his senior players. As you mentioned, in UE, they don't lose a lot of games. They've been consistent throughout the season. They've been in the top 4 all season. And it's a testament to what the work that Coach Marcel Gale has done. However, dropping 2 points has now opened up a small crack that Humberline can crawl through and get the top spot. And you know that you get $1 million for being top of the table at the end of the season. So they have 2 more games where they have to win to protect this lead to ensure that they finish in the number 1 spot and ensure also that they remain in the top 2 and only play semi-final football and a quarter-final football. So they were looking at that. They won't be too concerned, but it'll be cause for you to have to pay some attention. You want to ensure that you get 6 points from your last 2 games, wrap up the season, put up for a day or 2, and then refocus on the semi-finals.
You look at the Harbour View side of things, the Stars of the East during the transfer window, they injected experience in the teams with the likes of Macaulay Tulloch, Sean Fraser, Priestley, and we saw Shelton play 1 game. Do you think that these sort of experienced players have added to Harbour View climbing slowly up the table?
It has not only added, it has saved them because they were not able to put together the type of results that they wanted with the youngsters. They've brought back in the senior players. The senior players have gotten the job done. The youngsters would have learned off of them, and now they're in a position where they're pretty much safe, I think. Yeah. And so now they'll have to look at how they retool for next season because a number of these senior players I'm expecting to return to the clubs that we're playing with across the world, especially in the United States and other territories. So Harbour View will be happy with the place that they're in now compared to where they were a few weeks ago, but they will have to really look at overall the setup in terms of the personnel to ensure that they have a better season next season.
Yeah, that is the key because it was quite in all different directions at the start of the season. You didn't know how Harbour View wanted to play and what they were trying to achieve. Harbour View presently 8th in the table with 35 points. They're 1 ahead of Waterhouse, who are in 9th and 34. Boyz are in 10th and 32 points, and Jamalco and Marvelly are at the bottom of the table with 29 and 28 respectively. So Dwayne, would you say the bottom 2 it will be as it is at the end of the season, do you think?
It looks that way.
It will be tough.
It will be tough. Boyz is not yet safe. Neither is Waterhouse. Harbour View has to get at least 1 more point to be safe. But Jamalco and Marvelly, for both of them, they are struggling. The situation seems to be getting worse. And you wonder where the persons will come from that will help to deliver them from this precarious position. It's hard to see them getting away from it. But each game starts 0-0. And if they believe in themselves, anything can happen.
Yeah, excellent point there. We're going to now preview in my opinion, one of the most mouth-watering fixtures of this round of games. The defending champions versus the runners-up from last season. Montego Bay taking on Portmore United. The same venue as well where they met last season, where Montego Bay United won 2-1. So Mobe against Portmore at the Montego Bay Sports Complex at 8 p.m. An interesting one, Dwayne, because points are up for grabs either way. It is very, very interesting how the table can look at the end of today's fixture. Montego Bay could hop to third, while Portmore United could close the gap with a victory. So either way, we're looking at a situation where a team can get closer to a goal they want to achieve.
Absolutely. For Mobay United, this is a very interesting game, one that they'll want to win. They're at home. 54 points would put them above Tivoli Gardens in third. They'll want to do that. They want to get more wins under their belt. You know, they had a bad patch of 3 losses on the trot before they got a draw. So they want to get a win tonight for confidence reasons. You know, Portmore United, they're a team that don't really lose very many games. You know, they're able to get the draws when they need to. And away from home, they won't be overly worried about getting another draw. But they'll be going for a win as well because they're an ambitious club. They too want to win. They came very close last season in a wonderful final. And they'll be wanting to get back to the final. So they'll be wanting to continue to win. You want to remain confident. Wins bring confidence. They'll be wanting to get one tonight away from home at the venue that they lost last season to get over that and say, you know, that we are ready to go all the way this season. So a win for Portmore tonight would be a great fillip going forward for them. But Montego Bay United, they don't lose very many games out west, so they'll be confident of victory as well. So I'm expecting a cracking encounter. And for those who can't go, can watch it tonight, they'll enjoy what I would think would be a very good game.
Indeed. On Portmore United's side of things, they have a little bit more on their plate because after this season, they have to go and play in the CFU Club Championship where they're going to have Racing FC of Haiti and San Juan Jabalete. Do you think that they should try to rotate the squad or go with their best in the Premier League and then focus on the CFU Club Championship? Because this Club Championship is an opportunity for the players to play overseas and be in contention for national team selection as well. So either way, it's a situation that they have to take serious thought about.
Yes, but I think that they have a squad big enough, capable of handling the rigors of club football outside of the Premier League. I think that they'll focus on the job at hand tonight and then they turn their attention to the other games. So I would suggest that they'll go for it tonight, go for those 3 points, put themselves in the right position, and then go from there because you want to go abroad with the confidence of, yes, we just got this done. We are goal scorers. We can get the job done against anybody. They won all 3 games in the previous round in the CFU. So that too will bring a lot of confidence to the club. So I envision that them going after 3 points tonight and building on it from there. All
right, your prediction for this evening?
I would say a high-scoring game. A 3-2 win for Mobay wouldn't surprise me.
All right, I'm going to go with a 2-1 Montego Bay United victory. Thank you very much, Dwayne. I really appreciate you coming on. And thank you to all the listeners tuning in. This is the Red Stripe Premier League Roundup and Preview Show. I'm Simon Preston and I was joined alongside Dwayne Richards. And finally, let's big up our sponsors. Premier League Clubs Association, the PLCA, Red Stripe, grab a Red Stripe and start the game. And yardysports.com, we are number one. Thank you very much for tuning in.